Post-traumatic stress disorder is not something that you can treat. And I've tried CBT, EMDR, exposure therapy, antidepressants, antipsychotics. Like, I might sit here, I mean, I'm blinking a lot, so that's a sign that my nervous system is in a funny place because I'm talking about it.
Yeah.
But I might present as somebody that's really, on the other side of recovery. It's my nothing else in the world matters. Just that song. Like, I can overcome anything.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Yeah, it's kind of aggressive.
Okay, what's going on there?
But then also growing our family is our legacy, and it's our right, and I should have been allowed the human right of having a safe and dignified birth, which would have allowed me to leave procreation to chance, where, I could have sex with my partner and maybe have another baby.
So, Louise, we've already, before beginning this podcast, decided we're going to move to a desert island and open an animal sanctuary. Was that what we landed on?
Beautiful. I would love that for us, Fearne.
Before we do that, we have got a whole load of stuff to chat about. Now, having followed bits of your journey, you're in a really interesting place at the moment. For one reason, you had a big week the other week where you put forward a petition to the UK Parliament. And this is all in order to appoint a Maternity Commissioner. This is very big, important work. Can you tell us what that role would mean to, women and men out there? Because it would affect everybody and benefit everybody. How would that affect us?
Thank you, Fearne. Yes. So about 2 months ago, a lady called Theo Clark, who's an ex-Conservative MP, and me got together and decided that we wanted to create a petition. We didn't realise it was going to take 2 months for it to be approved, but it now is. And I think that it is fairly crazy that in this country we don't have a maternity commissioner. So we have a commissioner for the environment, for domestic abuse, for education, for lots of really important topics, but not for maternity. And there are 600,000 women that give birth on average every year in the UK. It is the inception of life. It is the difference between life and death. It is bringing children into this world who are either going to be born into a stable world, stable family, or not. And having experienced my own heavily traumatic birth 4 years ago, I've really seen the challenges that this sort of problem can leave people with. I've been left with a lot of mental and physical scars, and it's taken me a really long time to get to a place where I'm actually functioning like a normal human again. And I really, Theo has her own experience of birth trauma. Weirdly, we both went to the same prep school and secondary school and reconnected in 2024 when my book came out. Yeah, and she's quite a bit older than me, actually. Oh, I say that, it's not meant to be an insult. She's in her 40s, I'm 35. So we weren't close, but we have that weird thing in common, and it felt like something that was meant to happen, you know, that this was the serendipitous moment that we were meant to connect, even though it was in awful circumstances. And so we started working together, and she obviously has the parliamentary background. I have lived experience, and I just really, really don't want what happened to me to continue to happen to many other women that are less fortunate and have less privilege and less resources, and that don't end up healing and surviving. Because there have been partners who have messaged me to say that they've lost their wives. And that, I remember when I received my first message like that, it completely broke me. So I always knew that there was something that I wanted to do to make lasting change. And, it is that cliche thing of turning something terrible into something good. And I think as humans, we're always searching for meaning. We're such problem solvers as it is. I couldn't find any meaning behind what had happened to me because it was just awful and it could have been avoided. And so this felt like the answer. And I, when I went through those worst times, I thought that I was totally alone. I thought that I was just this hugely unlucky person. I thought I was one in 100 million. There are 30,000 women a year that end up with PTSD following a traumatic birth. That's 5% of all births. And I think with somebody to take control of everything, we have a health minister. It's not enough. Like, they don't have enough time to focus solely on the maternity care in this country. And also the stats are quite scary, you know, and I don't want to sit here and just fearmonger, because obviously, you know, a huge part of your following, a huge demographic, will be women of childbearing age. I think this is really about educating people. So yeah, there was this Guardian article that came out last week, which suggested that the Tories, they wanted to obviously work to reducing maternal deaths over a 15-year period. I think that the sad reality is that in the last 14 years, the death rates have gone up by 20%. Yeah. So it's kind of turned into a national scandal, and we just want to move things. So within the first 24 hours, we had 10,000 signatures, and for any petition, you need 10,000 signatures to get a response from Parliament. You've got 6 months, so there's a 6-month window, and we have until July to make hopefully get a lot of signatures. So hopefully lots of your beautiful listeners
sign it.
Can help with that. And then if you reach 100,000, they will consider debating it in Parliament.
It's crazy to me that it needs debating. I know that's so basic for me to say that, but this is half the population. Yeah, you know, all women will be affected by this in some way, even if it's not you getting pregnant. It's your mate, it's your daughter, it's, you know, it's someone close to you in life will at some point possibly get pregnant and have to go through, you know, what's supposed to be this magical, amazing experience can really be turned on its head if the maternity care isn't there. And this petition has been inspired because you had this inquiry and report that has all of these bleak statistics in there about postnatal care and also prenatal care, and that it's massively lacking, and also that a lot of it's to do with sort of a postcode lottery. It, depending on where you live, quite literally depends on what that standard of care will be, which seems absurd.
Very scary. And there's a lot of data on the inequality of the care, as you say, quite rightly point out, especially there's disproportionately more Black and Asian mothers that end up dying, and people that live in less privileged parts of the country. And I think it's really shocking. And you say it shouldn't even be. It should be something that is being considered really regularly and discussed in Parliament really regularly. Instead, there are regular reports and inquiries into the problem, but nobody is actioning anything. And I think like the birth inquiry, which did come out in 2024, set a long list of recommendations, which were things like properly educating birthing parents, creating more mother and baby units for parents that have suffered, 6-week check-up postpartum for mothers as well as the babies, adequate funding for midwives, obstetricians and anaesthetists to recruit them, train them and also retain them, because I think the retention rates are really poor at the moment. And I get loads of ex-midwives who are probably in the generation above us, who used to love their career and stuck around for 20 odd years, who might have children who have tried it and are just not treated with adequate respect. And so I think that there's a huge problem. And, you know, the government spend more money paying out medical negligence cases than they do on the care in the first place.
Wow.
And that's what's so alarming. And so there clearly needs to be this huge shake-up to tackle a lot of these problems for women, because it's becoming a systemic issue. And I really, really hope that we can get our foot in the door. And look, I mean, I have very little experience when it comes to politics, so it's something that I'm interested in and I'm reading more about, but it's not my, it's definitely not my space.
But you're bringing You're bringing the heat and the attention to it. That's very important. You know, it's all very well and good, and rightly so. You know, Theo, who you're working with, will have that knowledge and that background, but equally, we need voices out there speaking about it, and we need the attention on it. So I'm certainly not sat here expecting you to know every political agenda that's out there. I just think it's a subject that, well, women's health in general, I think the general sort of feeling is that women need to just suck it up and get on with it, whether it's hormonal health, sexual health, menstrual health, going back to when you first start your periods. We're just meant to crack on with things and get on with it. And this is the extreme of that. The most severe outcome is, you know, a mother not making it to be there for their newborn baby. That is the severe end of a problem that seriously needs looking at.
Absolutely. And I think that there has been an issue, obviously, amongst women's health, because largely, you know, the House of Commons have been made up of men. Now I think that, you know, there's a bit more equality. I think there are 40% of politicians are women. So we're kind of on the cusp of like this pretty major change. And I do really admire other people that have stepped forward and have dedicated so much of their time and their, you know, their like privilege and having a big following towards trying to create a big shift. You know, you're very close friends with Davina. She does so much for the menopause, which I think is amazing. Vicky Patterson speaks a lot about endometriosis. Yeah. You know, Ashley James, who I think you've had on as a guest as well. She's like really pro women, and it's really great to be surrounded by such incredible company. And I think that we are really on the cusp of change. And I just hope that we can get a conversation in with Wes Streeting, because it doesn't benefit anybody. Nope. You know, and there's not one person that benefits from this.
No.
Perhaps a couple of legal firms. I don't know. But
the shift, when you look at the other side of the coin, the benefits are huge, not only to the postpartum mother, but the baby and the family that spirals from that, but also, like you've said, midwives, obstetricians, anaesthetists, people that are working in that environment that want to do their job well, but need the resources and the funding and the backing to do it properly. It benefits everybody if that shift is in place.
It really does.
So you feel hopeful about it? Because it's a huge deal to go up against a government and to try and make huge systemic change like this. Do you, at these sorts of early stages, how do you feel about it?
I feel really mixed, Fearne. So I have moments where I feel really empowered, and I feel as though I've got like this army of people marching behind me that all want this to happen. I have other moments where I feel like a complete imposter, and then I think, God, I've got to come on Fearne's podcast today and talk about this really significant issue. And then I remember actually that every individual, you know, we're all just people. We're all individual people, and I can only do my best. I am learning a lot, and I am being a spokesperson, like a mouthpiece for the 1.5 million followers that I have. I've done polls. I'm creating forms. I'm trying to do my own research. But I suppose, you know, all people, you've got to start somewhere. Like everybody that's successful in some sort of pursuit, whether it is a petition or, you know, writing some life-changing book, like that all, more often than not, starts with a story that means something really significant to somebody.
Yeah. So
I do feel like a bit of a kind of a pioneer in this space, but it makes me feel emotional. And there are people that will say, God, you know, you don't have to do this. Like, are you all right? Like, is it going to be too much? I do feel like 4 years on, you know, I've had the year of survival. I've had the year of kind of acceptance, and then like the learning and the overcoming. And this is, I suppose, what post-traumatic growth really looks like, is feeling equipped to take on this big challenge. And I think that there are a lot of people, you know, I'm not the first person to walk in these shoes. I think so many of the people that I admire, whether it's like Matt Haig, you know, writing his books about depression, a lot of people that have been through something really awful decide that they want to do something with that. And I think it's because when you've suffered so much, you feel the pain so intensely, like you've experienced that more than anything any other like human lived experience, you become obsessed with it, you research it. And I'd say it's probably why a lot of like therapists as well end up, a lot of therapists are people that have been through something really traumatic and have had to work through their own stuff. They've worked with therapists. They realize that they're an expert in that and understanding and in connecting with other people that have been through something really deep. And they then go, yeah, I can recognize that in other people and I really want to help. And I guess that's kind of, I'm not saying, I definitely don't have the time to train to be a therapist and I'd be terrible. I'm terrible at listening. But Ryan will tell you that. I can't. But I do, I don't know. I feel like this is the beginning. We've got 6 months to see what we can do. I mean, we could get millions of signatures. One of the next exciting things that we'd really like to do would be to get a lot of women together to do a huge photo call on College Green, which is opposite Parliament, to create some more noise. And then really it's kind of conjuring up this marketing campaign just so that everybody knows, and it's the education piece. And I feel supported because there are some brilliant charities out there like the Birth Trauma Association, who I work really closely with. The CEO, Dr. Kim Thomas, has been heavily involved in this space for so long. And I guess people, they're right at the kind of like grassroots. They're the people that have to really like pick up the pieces, you know, when people's worlds fall apart. They're the ones offering out the resources. They're the ones with the peer-to-peer support, picking up the phone, trying to make sure that people stay alive. And now we're going to try and tackle both ends because, you know, they're like hugely underfunded. And
I mean, it's a huge mountain, but I think, you know, everybody's behind you and everyone wants you with all of these amazing people that you've forged an alliance with to keep it all rolling and keep it going. And any moment, you know, let me remind you that everybody out there gets imposter syndrome at times. And if you ever have it at any point in this journey, you just have to remember everything you've just said to me, that, you know, it's your lived experience. It's not, I think so often, like you just said, it's yes, you need to work with the right people because everyone's got their own skill set. You don't need to know everything. But if you're fueled by your own personal experience, I don't think that can be rivaled. I think that that's where all of that determination and motivation comes from, because you've lived through it and you are still living through it. I mean, going through something like a traumatic birth is not something that you just go, oh, right, I've done 4 years, I'm over it now, on to the next chapter. Anything traumatic lives with you forever. And it won't obviously have the same resonance forever and you won't drown in it forever, but it lives alongside you. Where would you say this far into your recovery from that? Where are you at mentally? How do you feel about, you know, you still have to talk about it often, certainly with a campaign like this. How do you feel about it?
It's a really good point. You do have to live with it forever. Like, post-traumatic stress disorder is not something that you can treat. And I've tried CBT, EMDR, exposure therapy, antidepressants, antipsychotics. Like, I might sit here, I mean, I'm blinking a lot, so that's a sign that my nervous system is in a funny place because I'm talking about it.
Yeah.
But I might present to somebody that's really, you know, on the other side of recovery. But it is something that will sadly plague me for the rest of my life. I suppose at its worst, it looks like traumatic flashbacks, which can be triggered by anything. You know, January, this time of the year, is really, really tricky for me because I've had so many hospital stays in January, a lot of emergency surgeries, like rushing into theatre. And so even looking out of the window, my brain knows when it's the 20th of January, you know, the 1st of January, the 20th of January. We're coming up to the 30th of January, which will be the 2-year anniversary of the surgery where I had to have my colon removed and was left with a stoma bag. And these things, you know, they're there. It's the smells, it's the sensations, it's the condensation on the window that can trigger me into feeling really scared. and the hypervigilance is actually a lot.
Yeah.
So it's lying in bed at night and hearing the smallest sound reverberate through my entire head. So I can be lying there and like, you know, that weird like crackling behind a TV or something that like a normal person
Or the
wouldn't
radiator
hear.
pops.
Radiator pops. But it literally, I can feel it go like, there's
Yep.
this huge wave and it hits and it just goes, floods through my whole body. And I think, and then I go, oh, okay, no, that's fine. That's a sign that I'm alive. It's all right. My senses are still all over the place. So I have moments where I feel dissociated and I can not smell or taste or hear or even see that well. And then I have other moments where I can smell, hear, taste too much. So I'm very, very, very sensitive. I have this like awful nerve pain, you know, that is something that I'll be left with probably forever. And also I suppose I've reached a place now where 4 years down the line, I think, you know what, I really don't want what happened to me to dictate the rest of my life and what my family unit looks like. And so we have reached a point where my partner and I feel like we would like to be able to give Leo a sibling because we're really close with our siblings. And I have been left with some fertility. So I don't have a period. You know, there are a lot of things that make me feel like less whole and human than I used to be before. It's not going to be an easy journey. I have decided to try and freeze some fertility while we then still continue to kind of like work on our mental space, because this has affected Ryan actually almost worse than it's affected me, especially when it comes to growing our family. I think for him, he's just like, why would we risk anything? I cannot go through that again. I cannot be the sole parent again. I can't like afford to have some big shift that means that I'm going to regress and be scary again and not know who I am and not know where I am and have panic attacks all the time. So for him, he's like clinging on to any stability. And then I juggle this hard thing where I think, gosh, we're so lucky because I survived, I'm here, and I do have a good standard of living. I've also got the most amazing child. He's so beautiful. But then also growing our family is our legacy and it's our right. And I should have been allowed the human right of having a safe and dignified birth, which would have allowed me to leave procreation to chance, where, you know, I could have sex with my partner and maybe have another baby, you know. And that's not, you know, I know that fertility struggles are a very real problem, and, you know, we are facing a population crisis. There are many reasons why people are leaving having kids until much later in life, and so infertility is an inevitable reaction to that. So I'm absolutely not alone in this infertility journey. Our circumstances are just really different because of what, you know, of just like the scarring that I've been left with.
Yeah.
And it feels actually quite like, it feels quite nice just to be able to like talk about it, and just quite like liberating, because it is, you know, when I first worked with therapists quite early on, and I say early on, but probably like at the 2 year postpartum mark, they would say, oh, you know, have you thought about having more kids, and how does that make you feel? And that must be desperately upsetting. And I was like, no, like, don't be ridiculous. Like, I absolutely couldn't think about any of that. And I think that there were just different milestones that they were holding me to. Maybe they had other clients who were, you know, reaching that sort of like conventional 2-year mark and thinking, oh, maybe we'd like to have another child. But it's not something, I can't sit here and say like I've yearned for this for a really long time. Like, we've only just felt good enough to kind of think about it. And yeah, I've done an IVF cycle. I've actually done 2. I did one when I was really, really busy. I that's another thing. Like, obviously, you know, I'm sure loads of people have come on this podcast to say make a plan, God laughs, or whoever laughs, whoever you believe in. there were times when I wanted to do it before, and then like something else really hideous would crop up in my life, like some other major trauma to have to deal with, some perforation or a surgery. And so it was always put on pause. And then because I have this bowel condition, I'm on quite a lot of different medication. And some of that medication, there's just not been enough research around whether it's like safe to carry kids. But that, you know, wouldn't really be the main thing for me. But it's also, they don't know whether it's something called teratogenic, which means that it can like pass on to the child, and they don't know at what like cellular level that could be. So I've had to work to this like program where I can switch medications. Basically, it feels complicated and like really deep to me, but when I say it out loud, people are probably like, so you switch medication? But I'm like, but for me, switching medication means like, but that medication was working, and like if I switch off it, then I might have to have like my bum removed in an emergency surgery. So everything has had to be so considered and like slow and delicate. And we got there. And then, yeah, I did a cycle, and I was very scared because it feels odd to choose, you know, to pay to have a procedure done. And everything else has been, you know, on the NHS and not by choice. And so, you know, even Ryan has thought like, but why would I don't want to see you in a hospital gown for any reason, like even if you are in control. And I did it, and it was at a time when I was, I think I mentioned I was really busy, kind of at the end of last year, and so I kind of breezed through it actually. And I'll be honest, I thought that it was fine, and I thought that it was easy compared to some of the other things that I'd been through, and I then felt really confident this year going into another cycle, because we didn't get the results that we wanted. But I was like, oh, maybe I'm just like lucky, and I sort of haven't found it that tough with all the hormones. And then I did another one this year, and it served me all of the worst things that you can go through in terms of feeling really like up and down and weak and emotional. And the emotions are irrational. You know, you kind of like have these little conversations in your head, or like with the monkey on the shoulder, you're like, I don't think this is me. But there's some fire coming out of me right now. And I'm like calling people that work in the clinic at like ungodly times of the day, being like seeking reassurance, like secretly, like a kind of addiction. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at with that, and we'll see what happens.
I mean, it's such a mix of things that you need to be looking at, like you've just mentioned, the medication and looking at the PTSD and the emotional turmoil, and then your relationship with your partner. There's so much in there. Going through something like IVF, and like you've just said, you know, you've got your hormones up and down all over the place, as well as the expectation and the waiting and the not knowing. What is helping you through all of that? Because you've been through hell and back, and you've gotten to a place where you're able to make a decision like this, but you've got to maintain whatever you can, you know, a good base level of mental health to get you through this next bit. What do you need in place to ensure that happens?
It's a very good question, because I'm living through it kind of at the moment. I think that as I started to get better, so sort of like 3 years postpartum, I sort of like rebounded back into this place where I was in sort of turbo distract mode. So constantly trying to grow something and achieve something and be busy, or grow my team, or have, you know, deeper conversations, and like looking for distraction everywhere ultimately. And becoming almost feeling quite trapped, because I used to do a lot of like physical exercise and movement, and not being able to really do that, because anytime I do that now, I have awful like symptoms, and I sort of start bleeding and stuff. It's not very nice. So that's felt really hard. But I've really crammed the mental stimulation in. Whereas with this process, I've felt really fatigued, and I actually have just, I've like relinquished that like need for speed, basically. Like I've actually just gone, you know what? If I have to just cancel all my important or exciting things for January, that's okay.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah. And like, even if that rolls a little bit into February, I'm like, what do I actually...
Who cares?
What
if you
do I
it for a
need to
year,
do this
2
whole
years?
year?
Who cares?
Like, I've been through so much, enough
Babe,
to like last a
yes.
lifetime.
Yes.
That I don't need any more badges.
Give yourself a break. I mean, I totally hear you. I've spent years trying to distract myself from things I haven't wanted to think about. And I've done all the things that you've mentioned, CBT and EMDR and yada, yada, yada. And I think some of it's really stuck. EMDR I found very, very helpful. But I think that need to constantly be, whether it's achieving or mentally stimulated, challenging myself, doing things, is still my crutch that I lean on. And I know I've experimented it with in ways this January where I've had days where I've been on my knees exhausted from just doing too much and being with the kids on my own. And I've gone, do you know what? I'm cancelling this, or I'm not going to go to this thing that I actually don't need to go to. And I'm going to have a bath at 5 p.m. or before the kids get back from school and not feel horribly guilty or judged by anyone for doing it. We're all trying to do too much at one time. And then we give ourselves such a hard time for just stopping. I mean, the thing you have to deal with when you stop, of course, is the bombardment of thoughts and worries, or it might be stuff from the past. What's your mental way of, I don't know, whether it's quieting those thoughts down or just being able to arrange them into some sort of organised group so you can methodically deal with them rather than it just being brain noise?
Gosh, there's so much that I could talk about. Gosh, I feel better knowing that you also have the same struggles.
Mate, I'm on the run all the time.
January, it's just, this constant battle of like, yes. But do I need to have like a really solid start to the year? No, fuck it. I don't.
That.
I can literally just coast and be irrelevant and insignificant. And I just want to be an ant for like a little bit. And I'll just
are anyway.
Yes, we're specks of so arrogant to think that I need to have a really big January.
But we do. But we all think that. We all think, oh my God, I've got to make my mark, or even in life. And it's like we actually don't. I think most of us are just about getting through it. We're just about getting through whatever our bespoke set of challenges are. Varying degrees of severity. We're just about getting through it. And we can look on Instagram and think, oh my God, everyone's nailing it, or they're doing this or whatever. Behind the scenes, they're probably also just about getting through it. Yeah. And we do just need to take our foot off the gas. And, I'm not a therapist. I'm not giving you any advice. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. But what I will say is, yes, give yourself a break. You've got enough to contend with just, even like you said a minute ago, like you're aware of when your nervous system is peaking, that you blink a lot. I know my and I have the same thing. If I'm lying in bed at night and a radiator pops, I am literally on the edge of panic. Like, it's a visceral experience. And I know that I need to, throughout the day, check in with, where's my nervous system at? Am I breathing? Probably not. I'm probably holding my breath up here. Have I actually taken the time to stop and look around the space that I'm in? Like, have a look around the room. None of this stuff touches the sides. We're just fucking getting through it. So I think even if you wake up every day and you're like, my job today is going to be making sure my nervous system remains as level as it can, what an achievement.
Yes, I actually listened to a podcast not that long ago. I think it was one of Dr. Rangan Chatterjee's.
We love Rangan.
He's great, isn't he?
He's the best.
And so I got into him and you at the same time. You the OGs, the 2018
We were the COVID generation. We were the COVID people just like talking in your ear.
Yeah, it was wonderful. It got me through a lot of, actually, I thought the times were hard back then. They were not. They were kind of a doddle. But he did this sort of whole episode, I think it was just him, where he basically said every day just have a little thought about one thing that you want to do that day. And I was like, that's really nice. Like, let's just reduce this full 24 hours to like one thing that could maybe even take like a couple of minutes.
Yes.
That takes the pressure off. And that day when I kind of had that revelation, I thought, you know what? I'm going to think outside the box a little bit. I'm going to make today about Ryan, because I've really haven't spent any time thinking about him in a very long time, you know, and we was kind of just like in that phase where we're coasting and we're getting through and we're just sort of doing our own thing. But I was like, today maybe I'll make that my one thing. And that felt quite like enlightening as well, because I just also it forced me just to like take a gear change. I was like, I don't need to keep on this motor, this hamster wheel. I'll just stop, pause, try and answer that one question and try and do something, make it something really different every day. And that feels nice. I think another thing that I like to do, which is quite personal to me, is I love doing puzzles.
Ooh.
I know, I'm such a nerd. Like I love
I love
like a
it.
jigsaw. And even because I used to get quite a lot of anxiety when I sort of got around to parenting my now 4-year-old Leo, I used to panic that like we weren't, I mean, it was especially hard when I couldn't talk to him, that I was kind of in his company and I was like trying to think of the things that I should be doing. I just found the whole thing really overwhelming, and I'd be like, well, what am I doing like right now? Like I'm not talking to him, I'm not like actively feeding him. We're really just existing. And so now it's taken a while to come to terms with the fact that like it's important for a child to be able to do nothing.
Yep.
So that they don't come into the same habits that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And we do quite a lot of jigsawing together as well. So I do quite a lot of it on my own, because that allows me to concentrate on something that's outside of my head, but it just helps all the memories process.
Yes.
So it's like that time, even if it's kind of like half an hour at the end of the day, where I know that I'm like downloading all of the day and it's moving, you know, into the right like memory box in my brain.
Yeah.
And also you do still get like that little hint of like dopamine that you need to keep you going and keep you smiling, because you're kind of putting something together.
Yeah,
and so you're building something.
I love that. I think it's so important to have an activity where you do exactly what you've just said. You're letting your brain calibrate the whole day. It's just all slotting into place. Because otherwise, if I don't do that, and there's loads of days where I don't, I get into bed, turn my light off, and it all starts up then. And I'm like, I don't want to replay every conversation I've had in my head today, or think about every move that I made that was incorrect, or thing I could have done better. You do need to try and get that shit done before your head hits the pillow. And I think also if you've got a propensity to disassociate, which I also do, and I actually, since sort of looking at what I would be talking about with you today and looking at what you've been talking about recently in podcasts, you did a brilliant episode with Ryan, your partner, where you discussed a lot of what we've chatted about today, but within the context of a relationship. It made me remember that I disassociate, because it's so normal to me to do it that I know I go slightly glazed behind the eyes, and internally I'm sort of very aware of what my body's doing and how I'm speaking, and it's all a bit sort of surrealist and like I'm not actually there. But it's so normal to me that I have to go to myself, come on, like you're doing it, you're doing the thing. And I think if you've got a bit of a history of doing that, it's even more important to then have those little activities that allow you to just go, I am going to be subconsciously processing everything, whether it's trauma in the past or things that have happened today, whilst I do one thing.
Yes,
like when do we do one thing? We're watching TV on our phones, we're like cooking and talking to someone. It's absurd.
We're absorbing so much. And our brains need a break.
Our brains are
The
fucked.
dissociation is they're like, I'm so tired and overworked. Like, please, can you just turn the heat down a little bit? Like, I feel like a computer or a robot sometimes that's just overheating. And then I'm like, I even had people think I'm completely crazy now, but the thought of like, well, are we all actually just turning into robots? Like, why are we doing this to ourselves?
I know.
We're treating ourselves like machines that never need like powering down, like laptops now. Like I never turn it off. I'm never like shut down and reset.
It's mad.
We're just like live all the time.
I agree. I mean, before we started this chat on the mic, we were having this sort of chat off mic about how like I'm constantly on the precipice of, fuck this, I can't do this, it's all too much. What am I even doing? What am I doing in my life? I need to go and work in a cat sanctuary and do something better with my time, or like I'm constantly sort of existential and wondering, because you do just go through these motions of get up, take the kids to school, rush back, go to work, rush through that bit of the day, rush through getting the kids. Everything's just a rush to get to sleep, which I don't even do. And then you rush again the next day. And it's like, what are we doing? What the fuck are we doing?
What are we doing?
What
are we doing?
What are we doing?
So I'll tell you who I lean on. Me and Ryan are polar opposites.
Right.
So he does not get carried away with things. Like he's slow. He's like a slow mover, a slow thinker. Sometimes very frustratingly, I'm like, how does your brain work at this like slow frequency? And I'm so fast. And sometimes I'm like, well, maybe you're just not as clever as me. He won't mind me saying that. But equally, I'm like, but you're like it's like the tortoise and the hare, and actually you're still getting to places, like you're still moving. He's decided this year to go, he's doing like an Ironman in Hawaii. He doesn't care if like he doesn't achieve anything except for like that one big thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's actually great. In my mind, I'm thinking, and I know people like this, you know, a lot of people in this same industry as well, who don't take holidays. You know, my brother's a culprit. He's like, I couldn't possibly take a holiday unless it's tied in with something
with a work
to do
thing.
with work. And I'm like, you have to, because as someone who has spent time, you know, waking up from like an awful kind of like life-changing, life-threatening surgery, in those moments, you do really think, okay, like this is all a game. Like, let's just make sure to definitely carve out the time to like hang out with some cool people and just be silly and you know, I do have a lot of respect for people that kind of just like move. They think like, oh, you know what, like I've spent enough time here in this country, I think I'll try something new for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm so envious of those people.
It's like that must be like a life well lived, having very like different experiences. I think I find that quite comforting, knowing that like if it all goes wrong, there is the option to do that, because you can always kind of start again. But this year, I think because we were off to a bit of a weird start with this IVF cycle, and then actually my son ended up in hospital just for 48 hours in the end. It was the reminder that like, okay, like every January I'm reminded that like life is tough and like bad things happen even to good people, and like don't like sprint out the gates. Like I can speed up towards the end of the year if I like have to, if there are like targets or something I need to meet. But for now, like let's just enjoy it.
And right. I mean, it's a very complex place to be when you've been dealing with a life or death situation where it's like, I've got to have this surgery and you don't know what the outcome's going to be. And yes, on one hand, you can come out with this amazing broader perspective of life and understanding that it's also fragile and ephemeral and precious. But alongside that, or equally, you're left with an anxiety that, oh my God, life's so fragile, ephemeral, and it's, you know, it's slipping through my fingers. It's you can apply a positive and a negative to that same thought process. Where do you tend to sort of sway most, the fear or the broader perspective?
Well, I think I used to say that it was. I remember before I did a podcast ages ago, maybe it was with Elizabeth Day, actually, I was worried about doing the podcast. And I think I had said in my head, I was like, the thing that I was going to say, first of all, when I like got in there was like, because of my PTSD, I have loads of personalities, so I don't know which one's going to show up. And that you kind of reminded me of that, because there are these different elements to you that want to speed up then slow down, and you feel like really different people. So like there's the old Louise and the new Louise, and sometimes I do feel really conflicted. I do feel like something's very different this year. Like I do feel as though I don't care. I feel like I've I feel, I know that I have nothing to gain by trying to be so busy that I'm just like racing to the grave, like that I'm just speeding up my days.
Yeah.
And that feels really nice. Like I feel happy to move more slowly. And I also feel like I just want to prioritize the things that actually mean something to me, which has been really hard because I've, been a people pleaser my whole life. And now I feel like I don't need to be that person. And I also have, I used to feel as though there was always someone judging me or like marking my work, that like everything had to perform really well and I had to be really polished. And now I think actually, like, likability doesn't equate to success. Like, there are so many other metrics to success. And so I feel better about my relationship with social media and my work and my relationship with my partner and my son. And I feel in a good spot. I think I'm hoping like this year is just going to be really wonderful for everybody.
That sounds like liberation.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in the whole notion of being likable. Hence, I've just written a book about it that's out soon, and I've been even thinking about it since writing it, and wish I could add things to it because there's constantly new thoughts. And likability is such a strange sort of nebulous subject matter because, you've been in the game of social media and that being part of your profile and your work, much like me, but you've also been on reality TV where that's a whole, other bag of onions where you've got people judging your every move on that. And likability comes into play so heavily, it becomes a currency for all of it. But what is it? Like, how many people have to like you for you to be likable? Do the right kind of people have to like you for you to be likable? Do you have to be likable consistently for it to count? Like, how does it work? What does it even mean? It's such a load of bollocks. And actually, the only thing I can land on is that it all equals compliance. That's all it is. It's being able to shape shift enough in any situation, environment, or people you're around to not rock the boat or piss them off. That's all it is. And then you're likable.
Wow.
And then you're likable. It's really nothing to do with you at all, because actually then, and I'm going on a rant here.
No, I love this.
But then you're only being liked for this weird projection that you're putting out there. You're not actually being liked for who you are at all. So it's actually pointless because you're not likable. Your little fictional character you've built to not piss anyone off is likable. Yeah, you're playing the game well. Well done. It works. And that's the only thing that I can comfort myself with when I think, oh, fuck, did that person leave thinking I was an asshole, or did I come across like a weirdo or whatever? It's like, well, I might be a weirdo. Who cares? Do you know what I mean?
And the best people are.
Yeah, exactly. And like, whatever. So I get where you're at. I've probably reached that. I'm older than you. I've reached that further down the line. I wish I'd reached it in my mid-30s, because I think if you're starting the year like that, and I'm pretty sure it's been accelerated by every bit of trauma you've been through because you're fast tracking yourself to, I don't give a fuck. What a great way to start January, I'd say.
I'd say so. I'm so excited to read your book. Can you send me a copy?
Yes.
Thank you.
Of course.
Because I'm fascinated in this topic.
Me too.
But what I think what helps is looking at the people that you actually admire and learning that that often those people are liked by a small group of, like, a community, but also kind of hated by loads of people as well, and seeing that they're fine with that,
who cares,
is quite cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I'm like, the people that just want to be liked by everybody, like, they're not really going anywhere. And as you said, like, how do you even like quantify that? What's the end goal? Like,
what is it?
How
I'm the most liked human
how
on
liked
earth.
do you need to be? Yeah, but like, I mean,
is it?
Unless we become like a football player, that's just not going to happen.
Yeah, and even then they get loads of shit.
Yeah,
so it's
and
it's
they're
all
out there
pointless.
cheating, so everyone's unhappy.
It's all total bollocks. So, my penultimate question, my question to you is: where is your happy place?
Great question, and such a nice thing to be able to think about. For me, skiing. So just total, like no one can bother you when you're skiing. So coming down a mountain on 2 planks of wood, cold air like blowing against your face, feeling totally liberated and like, you know, a little bit dangerous as well. For me, that's really good. Like in the mountains.
I'm the worst skier. I've only been once. I was so bad. And I went with a really good skier, which put me off. So I need to get back. I need to try again.
Let's
I must try again.
Trip.
Okay, I'm there.
Ski trip.
Okay, I'm coming.
I was speaking to this about this
I'll be on the kids'
Sam
slope.
and Pete last night, and we were like, just because skiing's so funny. Because even it's better when people
when
there's
it's
a real
fun.
Mixture of people.
Okay.
It's so funny.
Okay, sign me up. I'm there.
Yeah.
And my last question is, we are going to compile a happy place playlist. So music that makes you feel really good. Doesn't matter what the genre is. It could be a song that makes you want to cry your eyes out. What would be the song you would put on the happy place playlist?
Oh my God. Sorry to do this to the playlist. For me, it's going to have to be Lose Yourself by Eminem.
Let's whack it on there.
That's my like nothing else in the world matters. Just that song. Like I can overcome anything.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Yeah, it's kind of aggressive.
Okay, what's going on there?
So it would be that.
Well, look, I think everything that you're doing is so marvellous. It's so incredible that you're putting everything you've been through behind this exceptional petition and campaign. You know, this is, I'm sure, not going to stop at the petition gaining the amount of signatures needed. This is a life's work for you now. You know, you've been through something incredibly tough, and now you're using all of that energy to create, you know, incredible systemic change. It's really wonderful. So I wish you all the luck with it. And I'm really hoping that everyone listening to this gets behind it, signs the petition, you know, tells all of their friends to listen if they're interested in this subject, or even if they're not, they should bloody well learn about it, because it's so interesting. And for you sharing your fertility journey and your PTSD journey, it's helping a lot of people out there. So yeah, amazing stuff all around. Thank you so much, Louise.
Thank you, Fearne.